All right, I think that's coming, is coming up. Yeah, yeah, we'll have it. All right. Um, yeah, becoming a machine learning engineer. So once again, I'm Tolulade Ademisoye, technical partner and founder at Rispa Technologies. My main job includes executing and managing data science flows at Rispa, over as well as combined 8 years experience in the analytics industry. All right, and you can shoot me an email at tulade@rispatechnologies.com.ng, or you can reach out to me via Twitter at Tolulade. Um, okay. All right. Thank you for the feedback. I think I'm going to increase my volume. Yeah. All right. You can reach out to me on Twitter at Tolulade underscore ATU. All right. So we're going to be going straight into the session. But before we go into today's session, I'm going to be walking us through on the full concept of machine learning. What exactly is machine learning? What are machine learning operations? And what is going to be needed to execute a machine learning process. All right, just a minute. Now, the video you can see on my screen, on your screen rather, you'll see a video that talks about deep learning reinforcement. And this video was shared recently on LinkedIn by I think by Philip, a LinkedIn contact. And this video gives you a view of a simulation, using reinforcement learning. As we all know, machine learning is in itself is broad, which is a subset of the AI concept. And under machine learning, you have different areas which I'll be talking about in my next slide. In my next slide. All right. Now this video, let me play the video. Okay. Yeah, as you can see on your screen, what you see on your screen here, you see there's a reference and there's a simulation. Now this shows you this just shows you a depiction of deep reinforcement learning. But before we get to deep reinforcement learning, there are certain technicalities that needs to be understood under machine learning. Okay, all right. So if you may ask, like, what is machine learning? And I'm sure that some of you might be wondering, how do I apply machine learning? What really is machine learning? And how do I apply machine learning in my industry? Or how do I apply machine learning in my day-to-day job? Or how does machine learning apply to me? So to start with, machine learning is simply a class of software solutions. Um, it's a class of software solutions and algorithms that enables you to take data and perform computational analysis. And this is subject, obviously, to your data types, and obviously gives you a new way of learning. So, in simple words, let me break this down for everyone. So, machine learning involves you taking a data. Now, your data can exist in different formats. You could have an audio data. You could have a data from a text file. Just like you have your Microsoft Word, you have your Notepad. Your data can exist in a variety of formats. So machine learning involves you in gathering this data, using algorithms. They already set algorithms already in machine learning and performing what we call computational analysis. It gives you a new way to see data. It gives you a new way to get out, to derive such meaningful insight from data. So I'm going to be showing you what we call ML in practice. Now, we've categorized this session under, becoming a machine learning engineer. So I'm going to be going with the assumption that you don't have any prior knowledge of machine learning. And this is probably your first time, or probably you are an intermediate who wants to probably extend his or her knowledge in the area of machine learning and AI. All right. So starting with, you can categorize machine learning under supervised and unsupervised learning. I'm going to be showing you, it's just a simple walkthrough notebook, like a demo, just to give you an insight, an overview of machine learning in practice. Some people have always, some people have always asked, how do I use machine learning? How do I get started in machine learning? And I'm going to be walking you on through these sessions. All right, and there you can see. So we've categorized this under what we call supervised and unsupervised learning. So in my own terms, these are the this is it's a foundational level for you when you're starting with machine learning. You have what we call the supervised learning and the unsupervised learning. Then secondly, as you go along, you go into what we call neural networks and the likes of it, CNN, artificial neural networks. This brings you into the concept of deep learning, which is a very interesting area for me. And then you begin to explore other areas like natural language processing. I don't know if you can. Let me just give you a scenario. If you can, something you can relate to. If you look at your phones, I'm sure everyone has a smartphone. That I'm sure everyone has come across a smartphone. Now you see things like your keypads. Right now, there are several technologies for keypads. You have the Google Pad, the Google keypads, and the Microsoft. You have the Swift as well. Now, the ability of your keypads to learn words, to learn your text words, that is under natural language processing. You begin to go further into areas like ASR, and then semantics and the likes of it. But that's a whole different concept from now. Then you have what we call the deep reinforcement learning. Now, this deep reinforcement learning takes you to a higher goal in AI, what we call the AGI, which is the artificial general intelligence. Now, your deep reinforcement learning is all about learning in an environment. But today's session, we're not going to be going into deep reinforcement learning. I'm just going to give you an overview, of what is to expect in machine learning. If you want to become a machine learning engineer, you should understand, okay, these are the foundational concepts that I need to learn under machine learning, in terms of supervised learning and unsupervised learning. All right. So I'm going. Okay. All right. Now, as you can see on your screen, what you see here is ML in industries. I recall we had a webinar last year, December, and for some industry professionals, and so this just takes us back to that. All right, so what is ML industry? Now, say for example, now ML can be applied in various industries. You have the finance and insurance, as you can see on the screen there. You have energy and power. You have the oil and gas. You have civil. You have manufacturing, and there are lots of them. Even in HR. Why? Because every industry is generating a form of data. So every industry is generating a form of data, and the beauty of applying machine learning comes into play in virtually every industry. Okay. All right. So, all right. All right. Yeah. We're looking at 5 ways. I'm going to be taking you through 5 ways to get started in ML. If you can recall, I said that I'm going on with the assumption that our participants today do not have a prior knowledge in machine learning and AI. So I'm going to be taking it from the scratch, so that everyone can get a grasp of how to get started in ML. And also, this also gives you an insight into our forthcoming 7 weeks ML training, which is going to be starting April 30th, whereby we're going to be looking at a series of projects under supervised and unsupervised learning. And all right, now the first thing you need to, when you're getting started in ML, all right, is okay. As you can see on my screen, what you have here is I'm going to be giving you an overview as well. Like I said initially, I'm going to be giving everyone an overview of ML in operation. I'm going to be running through a notebook for you so we can all relate to that. And now the first thing you need to understand is what environment do you want to work with. Now there are several environments and several platforms. I'm sure some of us might have come across such platforms before, either via one way or another. So you have platforms like the Google Colab. I prefer the Google Colab because it gives you that collaborative means to work. You have Cargo, you have the Jupyter Notebook. So there are various technologies. That you could use. There are various technologies and tools you could use when it comes to your machine learning framework environment. All right. Now, the next thing that you need to do is that, or you need to understand is that you need to understand the data type. Now, if you're going to become a machine learning engineer, you need to understand what is my data type. Now, Andre Ng popularly is a popular statement. He says, it's not who has the best algorithm that wins, it's who has the most data. Um, as you go along, you're going to learn that the beauty of your model is based on the data. How much data you feed into it gives you it defines the beauty of what you're going to get in your model, in your AI model. Do you understand? So the first concept you need to understand is who engineers your data. Now this brings us to the concept of data engineering, which we're not going to be looking at for now, but it just gives you an overview of data engineering and data cleaning. Now, the data scientists spend when they spend more of their time in data cleaning, that's because the data engineering has not been taken care of, has not been factored into. So the first thing you need to understand is who cleans my data, who prepares my data. That's the first concept you need to understand. Say, for example, if you're going to be going to an area like NLP, which is natural language processing, you're going to need dumps, you're going to need text dumps, audio dumps. You're going to need this kind of data. And to make your work easier, when the data is prepared already or engineered for you, it makes the work a little bit much easier. All right, all right, all right, all right. As I continue, before I continue, rather, I'd like you to drop your questions in the chat area. If you have any questions in the chat area, kindly drop your questions. They will all be looked into in the chat area. All right. Now, as you can see, this as you can see on your screen, this gives you different applications of ML. ML can be applied in advertising, in education, in engineering, in entertainment, in finance, and what have you. All right. Now, the next thing you need to understand is you need to select a language. Now, this brings you to the concept of R or Python. I don't think I want to go into that right now, but you need to select a language. Select a language that you're probably you're comfortable with. Either drop your questions in the chat area, and we'll make sure that we answer your questions before the end of the webinar. All right. Now, the next thing, I want to talk about is okay, for me preferably, I prefer Python, and that's because Python gives you a little bit more flexibility. Python offers you more flexibility, and Python has more applications. You have diverse applications in Python. Yeah. Another thing that you should consider is now there are two things you should consider when you're starting a career in machine learning. You either group yourself with a team of software engineers. Now there's a reason for this. I think I'll be talking about this as we go along. You either group yourself with a team of software engineers, or you have 25% understanding of what we call software engineering. Now, because when you come to your model deployment, you're going to find that you're going to face some difficulties when you come to model deployments. All right. So, but the foundational thing you should do is to select your language, either Python or R. And the whole of the Python. What you need to do is that you need to understand or get the concept of Python for data science or machine learning. So that will give you a very, very good background to start with. All right. All right. So now the next thing is you're going to be selecting your framework. Now, by framework, when you want to start with machine learning, you're going to be using different libraries. You're going to have various libraries to use to start with. Now, these libraries are libraries in machine learning or libraries in Python for data science. They enable you perform, or they enable you connect to your algorithms. You can just, because Python can be applied for various tools for various reasons. But when you bring Python to ML or to data science, you need to use the required libraries. Then you need to look at what framework. If you're going to be going into deep learning, you need to know what kind of framework do you want to use, TensorFlow or TensorFlow Keras. TensorFlow and Keras, most of the time they go hand in hand. Do you want to use PyTorch? So it gives you, you need to understand what kind of framework do I want to use either for my deep learning, or for your reinforcement learning learning model. All right. So I'm going to be showing you just a little bit of of a notebook so that you cannot get a grasp, and yeah, you cannot get a short grasp of what we're talking about. All right, so I'm going to be sharing just a minute. Okay. All right, so just a minute while I share my screen. All right, so it's coming in a sec. All right, yeah. All right, so I believe you can see my screen. Okay, let me drop this down so that's all right. Yeah, so I'm going to be walking you through. I'm going to be walking us through some notebooks. Like I said initially, I'm going on with the premise, or I'm going on with the assumption that we have no foundational knowledge, or we have no knowledge in ML. All right. So now, what you can see on my screen is a notebook. It's a Google Colab notebook. Remember, I said you could either use Google Colab or Jupyter Notebook, and thankfully now Jupyter Notebook also gives room for collaboration. And so what you can see on my screen is a deep learning project uh, that was carried out recently by our team. So let me just scroll up. All right. So I get this question of, okay, I want to become a machine learning engineer. How do I start? I want to become a machine learning engineer. I'm like, how does it really relate? How does it relate? Now, what you can see, you have different cells, as you can see on my screen. You have different cells on the screen, and each cell has different lines of code. Now, for this deep learning project, we use a particular. I think we used a COVID-19 image data set. That was, I think, yeah, the Montreal image data set. All right. All right. Now, what you can see on the screen, I wouldn't I wouldn't go into much details. All right, I'm sharing my screen again shortly. Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah. All right. Yeah, all right. Yeah. So I can believe it. I believe you can all see my screen. All right. Now, so this is, like I said, this is a deep learning project that was carried out last year, October. And yeah, all right. Now let me show you another one. All right. Now the next one, what you can see here is this basically is a copy of a TensorFlow DQN project. This one more or less is a tutorial. Now this is an application of a reinforcement learning of deep neural network, deep agent network. When it comes to reinforcement learning, but I think that's a little bit more advanced. You begin to use things like agents. It's quite different from your supervised and unsupervised learning. All right. So this is just a walkthrough of how your reinforcement learning model could be. Say for example, now when it comes to applications, autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars, robotics, these are applications of reinforcement learning because it learns the agent learns, it learns in an environment in a particular state. All right. All right. So let me go back to my slide. Okay. All right. And I run this from here. Okay. All right. So the next thing we're looking at is choosing your algorithm. Now that's the next concept. Why this comes in play is that now, say for example, you need to understand the project objective. When you start a project in machine learning, or when you about to start a project in probably in deep learning or or what have you, you need to the first thing to do after selecting your environment and your framework is you need to understand the algorithm. Now there are several algorithms to use in ML. There are several algorithms. Now they will depend on your project or your aim, your objective of the project. So what I can say, what I advise is I advise people to get text materials. It's one thing to get codes online, to get notebooks online and start practicing with them. But secondly, more so, you need to get textbook, get materials on that talks about machine learning. Yeah, that breaks it down for you, that breaks the whole mathematics, that breaks the semantics, that breaks the whole concept for you, that breaks it down for you in a way you can understand. Because I realize that when you have an overview or a insight knowledge or a foresight, you have that insight knowledge into the technical concept. When you go into the coding area, it simplifies the whole process for you. And there are various resource materials you can get online, and you can also tap into. I think if I remember, I'll drop in the chat area. All right. Then the next thing you need to do is to play around some code when starting in ML. Play around some code. You can just get some notebooks and begin to play around them. Uh, Play around some code. Then the next thing you need to do is also you could also leverage on existing models. Now, it's what we call pre-trained model. So now there are some models that would take you a lot of time, to generate. They can take you man hours, and instead of you reinventing the wheel, you can just use a pre-trained model for that. As you go along, you'll get to understand that concept of pre-trained model. All right. Right. Now, the next thing you need to grab is understand ML APIs. Now, in machine learning, now there are various APIs. Now, when it comes to model deployments, now 80% of the time, machine learning or data scientists create data models and they don't know how to deploy them. That's because deploying a model requires a bit of technicality. It requires a bit of software engineering skills, because you need to understand, because first of all, your model, preferably your model needs to be in a cloud database if you want to make it public for people to access. How you need to learn how to deploy that model. So you begin to work with APIs, you begin to work with several tools, online tools, and that for you to deploy your models. So this brings you the concept of machine learning APIs. All right. All right. So now, all right. So the next, all right. Then we have what we call the 7 weeks machine learning training, which is coming in Whisper. And then I'll be dropping the links for everyone who's interested, who will be joining our session. However, hi Aminu. Okay. Before then, so I think Aminu will be talking to us on a bit of a bit of a bit of his journey into machine learning, so we can all get a grasp of that. Hi, Aminu, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, I guess. Hello,
Yeah,
good morning.
nice to have you. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Okay, so can I can I start now? Okay.
Yeah, you can share your machine learning journey. Yeah, with us.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, hello, everyone. My name is Israel Aminu. I am a data and machine learning engineer, right? So I'll be just giving us an overview on what it's really like to be a machine learning engineer and some of those things you would learn along the way. So I think majorly the major problem about being a machine learning engineer is you monitor. So basically, when you are making predictions of your machine learning model, you monitor how well it's been predicting or whether it's predicting the way it ought to, and you tune the model. Although the data scientist does that, but when it gets to the point whereby okay, this is the data you are getting, and he needs to like fine tune his model and some other stuff like that, then yeah, that's one thing the machine engineer too will also have to learn. Another thing again too is software engineering. So it's when the data scientist builds the model, creates the mathematical model, chooses the algorithm of choice, the model just sits there. It doesn't really do anything. So in a well standard production environment, that's where the data scientist's job ends, right? So the machine engineer has to know the infrastructure to use, where he runs the model on, what kind of data, the pipeline of where the data is coming in. Is it coming in by batch or is it coming in as a stream? So he knows how, okay, this is how the data is coming in. Then he knows how to place the model, how to deploy the model. Is it as an API or to a mobile application? Or yeah, so that's really what the day-to-day job of a machine learning engineer do. They basically monitor and deploy machine learning models, and they always put a lot of they also put infrastructure into place, and that is where the whole concept of cloud comes in. So one thing first is software engineering. So you must have a very good background on software engineering, be it Python, be it JavaScript or Java, and you must have a little bit knowledge on cloud solutions. Yeah, because you train models, right? So take for instance, a data scientist trying to train a model of let's say 5 hours or so. So he may not be able to train it on his system or on his laptop. The job of a machine learning engineer is to build that infrastructure where he can also train that his model and can be ready to be deployed. So he needs to have a little bit of concept on cloud, right? And another thing again too is monitoring. So logging. So when this model is being deployed into production, how does it logs? How does it monitors? How does it know, oh, if this model is predicting the way it ought to predict? So I think I'll just give you guys a scenario. So I think I was working in a fintech company in Lagos, right? So these guys wanted to, they were building an application, and they wanted to deploy a categorizer, like a machine learning categorizer, whereby if users so let's say take for instance you get a credit, let's say you get a credit notification on your phone, like okay, you purchase something or so. So we want to build a machine learning system that can automatically categorize that transaction, like say, okay, this is a credit transaction, this is a debit transaction, and this was what you bought, this is what you used the money to buy based on the description of the text. So I had to use the concept of NLP and the whole concept of NLP, yeah, and knowing the right algorithm to use, of course. So the issue we had was that everything was okay, the machine learning model was okay, the deployment infrastructure, everything was okay, but the machine learning model was not predicting the way it ought to. So when we debugged and we got to find out that the problem was the data. And I think that is where what Tolu mentioned earlier. So one thing you need to understand is you need to have a very good grasp of data. And that is where the whole aspect of data analysis comes in, and you need to know, okay, this data, how does it impact our model performance? If we add this feature, if we don't add this feature, will it increase the model accuracy? Will it decrease the model accuracy and all? So yeah, that is, and it still comes in the form of monitoring. So you will do a lot and lot of monitoring. Yes. So basically,
Great,
that's just how it
great,
is so far,
great,
day to day.
great. Okay, briefly, could you also share your experience on challenges around the deploying models?
Yeah. So one thing again is cost. So I think cost is one of the major challenge. So let's say if it's a very simple machine learning model, let's say a simple classification model built with data, right? So to deploy it on a very, let's say on an instance on AWS now, you could probably use the normal um, let's say the normal T2 micro, normal instance machine type you could use. And you may incur less charges when deploying these models. But let's say you are deploying a deep learning machine learning model as an API, right? You have to use a large machine learning instance, like a large instance type, and you usually incur a large amount of cost. So cost is always one of the major because you would pay a lot. That's if you are learning it on your own. But if you are deploying it for a company, of course, it's the company that will definitely pay for it. But the major thing there is cost. And second thing again is data. So data. I think majorly you need to focus more of your time on your data because that is really where the only source of truth can come in. Because if you don't have a very good source of if you don't have a very good data source, that would also be a major fallback to your model when you're deploying into production. Because if the model is bad and you deploy it to production and it starts ingesting data, it's not going to give you the desired output, and you have to now go through the whole iteration process all over again, which takes a lot of time and is time consuming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Aminu.
Okay.
Aminu
Does
Israel
anyone
for
has any
that intake.
questions?
All right, I think that was all for now.
Okay,
Um,
that's fine.
yeah. So, I mean, you heard it there. That's another view, and a very insightful view of machine learning in practice. And I think it said very insightful thing, which is based on experience. And I find, personally, I find the whole AI industry very interesting, because it's something you can relate to. Because data is generated every day. So the thing is, how do you make sense of that data? All right. Now this brings us to our 7 weeks ML training, which is going to be starting April 30th, as you can see on the screen there. The first session to start May 1st, which is Saturday. And then also I'm going to be answering the questions in the chat area. I'm going to toggle between the two. All right. Now we're going to be focusing on supervised and unsupervised learning. Now there's a reason for that. Now because if you look at it, you need extensive time to get a grasp of supervised and unsupervised learning. And coupled with work and other things, you need you can't combine, if you want to go into deep learning or you need to start from the foundation. So at RISPA, at RISPA Academy, we have what we call the foundational ML class or ML training. Which is which focuses on supervised and unsupervised learning, and you get to work on various projects, as you can see. Python foundations for a start. Then we go into core ML, that's a core machine learning. uh, you have your project, and you get to deploy on GitHub, and you are in the course of the training, the course of the 7 weeks, which is starting in April 30th. You have a specified data type for your training, and also alongside collaboration, focusing on supervised and unsupervised learning, and why you have the completion at the other end. All right. All right. All right. Now the question is, how do I apply for it? I'm going to be dropping this link. On the chat area. That's for uh, for easy signups for those who are going to be signing up for the 7 weeks ML training. And right now we're going into questions Q&A. All right. So kindly drop in your questions in the chat area, and it's time for us to answer your questions. All right. All right, so I just dropped the link on the chat area. So I'm going to go up. Okay. All right. So let's see. So someone asked if the recording will be made available. Oh yes, you get a link to the recording. You get a link to the recording after the session. All right. So someone asked, what are the basic requirements? Excuse me. Someone asked, what are the basic requirements, e.g., language knowledge needed for ML? I think I already answered that in the session. You need a good grasp of either Python or R. And Python, they are both cool. I mean, but I will go with Python. Python gives you more flexibility, and Python has more applications. And Python is simple. It's a good grasp for everyone. All right. So, all right. Someone asks, how is ML related to AI? All right. So the whole concept of artificial intelligence is a very, very broad field. It's quite broad. And under there are two ways to ML. There's a second one, which is what we call the knowledge. That one has there's a word for it, which is not which is not coming to me at the moment. But ML is a concept, it's like a subset of AI, the whole AI concept. And your ML has varieties of applications in terms of deep learning, in terms of the natural language processing, in terms of what do you call it, in terms of reinforcement learning, which is quite a bit different, but still they're all related. Then someone also asked, what is model deployment? So now the whole idea of machine learning is, say for example, you work in an healthcare industry or you work in a car factory industry. Every day your car moves from point A to point B. There's a data of what I call velocity, right? Now, if you aggregate that data over a period of time, say for example, 10 years, it gives you what we call an historical data, right? Now, with that historical data, if I want to know at what point did my car probably break down or something, maybe they run of fuel, you can know that via your machine learning by developing what we call a machine learning model. And this model is being built with your algorithm, your AI algorithm. All right. Someone says, what do you consider when choosing a framework? So there are various things to consider when choosing a framework. Just a minute. All right. Now, there are various things to consider when choosing a framework. Like I said, but the foundational thing you need to know is you understand the project requirements, because you're going to be applying different frameworks to different project requirements. And also, you also could have pick a framework that you're comfortable with, you're comfortable on learning. All right. Someone has said, how is ML used in robotics? So one application of ML in robotics is autonomous robots. Your self-driving cars. They're going to be using the concept of what we call the reinforcement learning. They're going to be using sensor data, motion detection, and another kind of stuff. All right, so let's proceed. All right, so someone has asked for AI materials. I'll do my best after this recording to see if I can share some. I can share a link to some. If I can, yeah, I'll try and see that. But although it's not certain. Okay, someone has asked, how do you source for data? All right, so there are various ways you can source for your data. You have Cargo. You have Google has a data storage source where you can get data for AI. I mean, there are various, depending on the kind of data you're looking at. You have some statistical data by some countries, what we call database houses. Various countries have different sites and platforms where you can get data. So data is available online. There are various sources for that. But I think you can start with Cargo and just check out Cargo. Start with GSC Voma. All right. All right. Okay. Okay. Someone is asking. All right. Okay. Someone is asking how much. All right. So if you can see, there's a link that's been shared. There's a Paystack link that is shared on the chat area. Kindly connect via the Paystack link. So the Paystack link gives you the details of the program, the whole program itself. So someone is asking, is it only Python that you need to know for software engineering? No. No, it's not only Python. There are other frameworks you need to know. I mean, although you might not need to bother yourself around those other languages, because but if you have a good knowledge of them, like JavaScript, React, and like it's a good one. However, understanding Python is the foundational for you. Should be your top priority. Getting a good grasp of Python. All right. So okay. So someone is asking, okay, what's the cost of the training? So the training is about $200. That's about 75,000 naira for those in Nigeria. All right. Okay. All right, so after the training, what you get is you get a certificate of completion after the training. Okay, another question is my background. My background is food science and technology. What are the limitations? All right, so I would say that there are no limitations because it depends on what you give yourself. There are no limitations to starting ML. The concept is interest. Once you have interest in it, you can pick up a notebook, either Python, either Jupyter notebook or Google Colab, and you can start practicing. You can start learning the code. So there are no really limitations. As long as you have interest, that gives you a good start. Okay. All right. Okay, no, I said cargo. I said cargo. I'm going to drop that in the chat now so you can see cargo. And then when you sign up for the training, for the 7 weeks training, you have we can get to talk more about all this. So it's cargo, KAGGLE. Yeah. All right. So after the training, you're going to be able to develop your own model, your own machine learning model, as well as to deploy. You're going to deploy a simple model, so that you can see the beauty of machine learning model. All right. Yeah, cargo. That's great. All right. Are there any questions again before the time is up? All right. All right. Thank you for attending this short session, and we look forward to seeing you come April 30th. We look forward to seeing you come April 30th, the training. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to share the link, what do you call it, the registration link, the paystack link, where you can register for the training, which is coming up April 30th, and a recording of this session as well. All right. Thank you for coming, and do have a nice day, everyone.